What is up, everybody? Welcome to a special Tuesday live show with the Adaptive Athlete Podcast. I'm Matt Hotho, the host of the Adaptive Athlete Podcast. Tuesdays are an odd day for us going live. We usually go live on Saturdays. Tuesdays are actually the day when we drop podcast episodes. So if you go to Spotify and search the Adaptive Athlete Podcast, you can find our podcast episode from today with Courtney Lopez and other episodes from throughout the year. You can also follow me down at the Adaptive Athlete Pod. But today we're doing a special episode because we've got Kevin Ogar joining us. He's the CEO and owner of WheelWOD, and he's going to answer your questions. You all submitted a ton of questions. I think it was upwards of 40 questions through stories, but also through DMs and voice notes and emails. So much stuff. We can't touch on all of it. We certainly can't touch on specific situations, but we can touch on broad themes. And so that's what we're going to do today on this show. Feel free to comment on YouTube or Instagram, wherever you're watching, and share your questions that you still have or reactions, and I can bring those in as we are talking. But let's get right to it. I'm going to bring on Mr. Kevin Ogar. Here we go. Everybody, welcome Kevin Ogar.
Howdy, everyone.
Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Just sitting in my garage office gym. Office gym.
Groffice gym. I like that way of calling it that. That's great. Hey, you had a bit of a crazy weekend. You were teaching a CrossFit L1?
Yep, taught level 1 out in Boulder. We had 30 participants. It was great. And they're always a lot of fun, man. Like I secretly say that like teaching seminars is what's kept me so passionate and like ready to coach and do things over the last 20 years. Because you just leave them so fired up, even when you're teaching them. It's so much fun. It's a great time.
That is super cool. And I want to talk to you more about that L1 experience, especially because I think a lot of people who watch this might have questions about how does someone in a wheelchair coach, let alone lead a seminar on an L1 lecture, where we know there's a whole lecture on the squat and a lot of stuff like that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I want to dive right in because there were big questions that people had that centered around kind of 2 to 3 big topics like retention, topics like classification, and topics like just general communication and communicating with the community. So I thought as we reflect on the 2026 games season and look to next year, I think a lot of people are just curious, when is classification going to open for next year, so that if athletes want to get classified, want to tell their friends to get classified, they know what to tell them to do.
We're trying to get it open as soon as possible, the biggest window possible for this. I'm hoping that like sometime towards the end of September, beginning of October, we'll have it open, live, and ready to go, so people can start getting and get classified. People should also remember, like, if they're already classified, their classifications are good. Like, look at your classification; they're good for a couple of years. It'll have a date on there that tells you when you need to get reclassified.
Okay, so you have something in your athlete documentation that tells you when you have to get reclassified. But there may be athletes who even competed this year and went, maybe I'm not in the right category or something like that, and want to resubmit to get into another category. I would assume there's an option for that in the rule book. Yeah,
there is. You can, if you go on there when you go to get classified, you can actually it's like new classification, reclassification, and so it would just fall into the reclassification, and there are steps in the rule book. I would say if anyone's looking to get reclassified, like, hey, I'm in this division. I was in this division last year. I really think I'm in this division now, or I'm in this division, whatever. You're going to have to present something new. Like we're not going to review the same documents that you had last year and then try to change our minds. Like, you have to present us something new, updated medical forms, updated medical documentation, different tests, so that we can review those,
Gotcha.
The new stuff.
Yeah. And we were talking before we went live, but classification comes with a fee. And there was a little bit of pushback even in some of the questions I was getting about a fee for classification. Can you explain why there has to be a fee for classification, what that goes towards?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. One, because we want to keep everyone's medical information safe, all of our workspace has to be HIPAA compliant. That means our Gmail, our Google Workspace, the platform that we use to host the classification system, all has to be HIPAA, and it's not free for us to have all that stuff. So it does cost us some money to have that platform, and Lisa's actually working to make it a little bit easier on athletes to go through that and see what's going on there. But even still, it's going to cost us to update those things. We also we need to have people classify, and we have to have people who are coming in and maybe consult in some specialty areas, and that stuff's not free either. So, like, the classification fee isn't just like WheelWOD raking in money and then being like, wahaha, let me roll around on some singles.
Sure,
on my
sure.
bed, it's usually like almost 100% of it goes towards either, paying for the space that we're using and keeping it HIPAA compliant, or helping pay for the classifiers or the consultants that we use.
Yeah, and so I think that brings up a second question that a lot of athletes had, which is who is doing the classification? Who are these people who are classifying? I realize that it's not on the website, it's not public. I've said to you privately, and I'll say it publicly, that I think that would be helpful to have out there. But who are some of the people who are helping?
Well, we don't put them out publicly because we have had some problems with harassment from different athletes, and when they do find out who's helping us with this. But I mean, me and Shannon do a lot of the final work, like responding, putting things out. But when it comes to like especially medical documentation stuff, we do have, PTs, OTs, neurological specialists, different surgeons, blah blah blah, that we don't like go and hand the medical file to, but it's more of like a, hey, like this is what's reported. Would that correlate with this? Would that correlate with this? And basically just educating us on what's going on with these athletes.
Okay, but there's no sort of plan to have a classification panel that's like publicly known or anything like that?
I would love to have a classification board, classification panel full of people that help us with these and go through them. And we have had like one or two people in the past who have sat with us through the classification and have to sign like documentation and blah blah to make sure that they're on the up and up. But I don't know if I'd ever put them out publicly, just from my experience of when some of that stuff went public in like 2021, 2022 with classification people. There's quite a bit of harassment from athletes directly towards those people who are helping classify, and people who are willing to help us and willing to come in and do this very tedious, very drawn out job of helping classify do not deserve to be harassed by these athletes. And so like whether or not we get a board, I would love to. But that also comes back to resources. Like if we have a board, like a permanent board of classification, like we're going to have to pay them, which means we need more resources. And I'd like probably cost us tens of thousands of dollars a year just to have that board. And like when we have the resources for it, that's probably going to be one of the first things I put that resources for. But right now we just like, there's such a tight budget on running this season that I don't know if we could afford it and still operate.
Yeah. I hear that. I definitely hear that tension that's there. I want to jump to a quick question that was in the chat on Instagram, because I think it's important actually to take us out of the mire of kind of the deep stuff of figuring out classification, retention, and that kind of thing. And that's someone in the chat, what is their name, their handle? Dusk Coggins commented that he has cerebral palsy and he's wanting to get involved in adaptive CrossFit. Where's a place where he can go to learn more? And I would say WheelWOD.com would be a great starting place.
Yep, it's a great starting place. I mean, I can also help find places near you. I don't know where you're at, but I'm more than willing to help you find places near you as far as like what CrossFit gyms are nearby. And I do also do some consulting stuff with gyms who are wanting to start to work with adaptive athletes, like hopping on calls with them pretty much weekly to go through like, hey, here's how you work with adaptive athletes. Here are things to look for. And so I consult with gyms all the time. So if we can find one near this individual and they're willing to chat, I'm willing to chat too.
Awesome. And I did just accidentally lose my chat on Instagram. So community, if you all can still see Dusk Scoggins up in the chat, reach out to him, let him know what's available out there, connect him to the podcast page. I'd be happy to talk to him more. Also, I think Natalie from the UK, you commented something and I also lost that as well when I accidentally refreshed my page. So if there's a question there, Natalie, go ahead and repost that as well. Okay, so I think when we get into the classification debate, I'm going to sit here just a second longer just because we have time, and why not? Yeah. This is a question a lot of people
I think this is a huge question. I think this is really important to kind of get some information out there. I think there's some information out there floating around about our classification system that simply isn't true and made based on assumptions, based on how we run certain things. And I can see how the assumptions are made, but clarifying it's always good.
Yeah, I think too we have people who are sort of conflating the idea of para and adaptive and are maybe coming from a para model where there is a para code, there's a rule book, there's a rule book that lays out a point system, and people have asked, why doesn't WheelWOD use a published public point system like you would find in track and field, swimming, para rowing, para biathlon? I've downloaded all the rule books. It's amazing how many there's a laser running. Did you know there's para laser running? I wish I could do that.
There's so many of those sports. It's crazy. They're awesome.
Yeah, but they all have codes with written this is what your hypertonia has to look like for you to qualify for this division and this division. So I think a question people have is why doesn't WheelWOD have something like that?
We do have a point system, and we do have a point system we use per specific division. So it's not like one vast point system that controls all divisions. Like they're very specific, and we're consulted on looking at different parasports, different specialists. The reason we don't publish it is that we ran into a huge problem in like 2022, 2023, even going into 2024, of people using what was then the published WheelWOD point system, like it was out there, to reverse engineer where they wanted to be. And it caused a huge problem of people getting medical doctors to sign off on things that just simply weren't true. And going off of me and Stouty's experience in parasports and getting classified for multiple parasports and seeing people repetitively reverse engineer those systems to get where they want to be or get the points they wanted to, we keep our point system tied to the chest. So we eliminate the urge to try to reverse engineer it or to get a doctor to sign off on something that's simply not true. And it also makes it a little easier on our end to get the truth out of people and recognize when someone's like, hey, yeah, like I have this impairment, and the medical data just doesn't show it.
Mm-hmm. And just because this is something that I think there might be myths about, or this almost feels like Mythbusters, to be honest.
Yeah.
But there, how frequently are you guys finding that athletes are actually misrepresenting their impairment?
Since we pulled the point system down, not nearly as often, because it's really hard to know. If you don't know the point system, you can't really go to the doctor and say like, hey, I need X degree of loss of range of motion. I need X degree of loss of power. And so it's a lot less than it used to be when we actually, like in early 2020s, when we did pull, like when we used to do classifications, people would come on and we'd pull up the sheet and they could see it and they could see where the points were derived and what was required. And so like a lot less. And a lot of times, it does cause some problems for us because people would argue like, I really feel like I'm here. And it's like, I understand you really feel like you're in that division. But if we go back to the objective point model, the medical data you submitted and what we can see on video, it's just not there.
Yeah. Again, I think what's tough with that is then you're left with a rule book that's just describing divisions and pros. And that just never really leaves a lot of clarity for athletes that feel like they competed against someone who maybe didn't belong in their division. They have no recourse then to kind of, be able to file any sort of a complaint. I mean, what would you recommend an athlete do if they feel like there's an athlete in their division that is, unfairly in there? I mean, that's come up quite a few times in the questions without naming names, more of just general vibes, if that makes sense.
And we're watching for that. Like I'm going to assume one of the questions is like, do we take a look at this stuff after the fact when people are done competing? And we absolutely do. And we have big sit down meetings to look at their medical documentation and what we've seen and all this kind of stuff. And so we are watching it. Like you can't really appeal someone else's classification. If we are made aware of it, then we definitely look into things. But a lot of times when we have athletes reaching out to us, it's a misunderstanding of what the impairment actually is or how it's affecting them or a lack of knowledge of what they actually submitted. And they're just making assumptions on their category.
Gotcha.
And I get where that like leads into like, hey, if the point system's out there, they could see like, oh, like this person must have X, Y, and Z. But we've also gotten into people trying to take legal action against us to get our point system, which is how far it's gone.
Sure. Well, because I think there is a real sense of like, okay, what is happening here behind the curtain? And I think that some people feel entitled to that. And I get that you guys have no obligation to give that. You are not under an international federation. You are not operating under the Paralympic Code. You are a organization running a functional fitness adaptive competition, but the expectations people have of you are not something that you are contractually obligated to provide them. If I can
it's not because we don't want to help these people. It's not like we won't talk through these situations. It's not like we won't talk through your classification with you. Like I have thousands of emails and probably thousands of phone calls as well, talking through this stuff and decisions and what we have. We just don't make it public because it has been a very real problem in the past. And not just a problem for athletes trying to reverse engineer, but also a problem where people look at the, back in the early 2020s, looking at the point system and going, I don't agree with this judgment, and harassing other athletes.
Sure, of course. And that is, I will just say that outright. And I actually got messages from athletes sharing stories of harassment that they've gone through. it's terrible. Like, please do not harass other athletes. Like, that is not the spirit of what we do here in adaptive
Yeah, and
CrossFit.
we take those very seriously. If you have been harassed or feel like you've been harassed and you have any documentation and or proof of harassment, please do not hesitate to send that to us. We look into those very deeply. We look into them very seriously, and we have had to take action on a few of them that have come in. And so like that's something we definitely don't want anywhere near in our sport. The sport is about celebrating how awesome we are, even with our impairments or through our impairments, and how hard we had to work to get to where we're at. Not saying, this person sucks because I don't think they're as disabled as they should be. That's
Yes.
not, that has no place in the sport.
Yes. I do want to just kind of give a brief caveat there, which is, and this is my opinion, that when it becomes competition with prize money on the line and the ability to tell a sponsor, I got first, second, third, fourth, fifth, the vibes shift a little bit. And so I do think that there's some criticism that isn't bullying, that is coming from a place of, well, gosh, I'm trying to also grow my brand as an athlete, and I feel like I'm being unfairly put in categories where I can't show what I'm capable of with my impairment, if that makes sense. Can you see that side of it too?
Yeah, I can see it 100%. And like, I'm never going to say that what we're always trying to improve the classification system. We're always trying to improve what the divisions look like. Like in a perfect world, we'd probably have another 15 to 20 divisions. Like, do I recognize that we have to split it somewhere and we have to split it somehow, but not all those splits are necessarily going to create everything super fair. But it's as fair as we can make it at this point with the resources and the funding and the space that we have for it. I mean, as a sports, like we've seen it, like we had 8 divisions up until like 2018. And then as the sport got bigger and bigger, we added, the second we had the funds, the second we had the resources to add categories, we've added categories to where like in the last 8 years, we've added as many categories.
Yeah. Yeah. When I came in 23, it was the inaugural year of the neuromoderate division, which was a perfect division because I met guys in that division who had been competing in neuro minor and feeling like they didn't fit in, or competing in neuro major and feeling like this is too easy. And I'm definitely overqualified for this division, if that makes sense. And so neuro moderate hit this really sweet spot where, I mean, we've had some really tight races in neuro moderate the last few years. If you look closely at the leaderboard between some places on it of athletes who are similarly impaired, really going good.
Yeah. And we're kind of at this spot right now where, in those years, we were so small that once we had enough to fill the division, we could add more people because the resources didn't require us to have a huge jump. Well, if we go from even 16 to say 17 or 18 divisions, who do you choose? Do you add another neuro? Do you add another seated? Do you add another upper or another, short stature division or something like that? Like who do you add? Because you can't add all of them. We can't add 7 divisions in 1 year. I mean, even if you look at the field right now, I don't think the number of athletes we had would necessitate that many divisions, and we'd have some that weren't invited or couldn't go to the games because they just didn't have anyone. And I don't love that either. But it's maybe something like we have been looking at and trying to work on how we split and modify and do some things to make it at least a little bit more fair. And that's the hard part now too, when you talk about I wish I could show off what I could do. Well, yeah, me too. I really wish we could. Like, you guys are awesome. You guys do some crazy stuff, but we have to do it within the confines of the divisions we have right now. And what is, a great example is we don't program a lot of transfers in and out of the chair for seated 1 and seated 2. We can't. It like to have someone who's like myself, who's a low, I would say I'm on the cusp of seated 1 and seated 2. To have someone like myself competing in seated 1 and doing transfers with full ab function, and have someone, who's a T2, T4, T6 doing floor transfers. It just, so there's a limiter on what we can actually program and keep it as fair as possible. So as we grow and we get more of those divisions, we can start throwing a lot of that stuff back in there.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. You're bringing in another part of this, which is programming, which kind of brings us all the way back to you kind of teaching an L1 this weekend, which is the complexity of this whole darn thing, which is, functional movements, but then how you program those functional movements to actually hit the intensity that then becomes what is CrossFit, right? What becomes functional fitness. I want to acknowledge some people who've been in the chat on Instagram. We got Luke Reeson. We've got the Walking Ogar. Okay. We've got we've got Melissa Stockton, I believe, Stockwell maybe, out of the UK. She actually DM'd me. She's trying to get a UK adaptive get together just to build some community. So if you
Love
follow
that.
Melissa, yeah, I think that's such a cool idea. Probably much easier in the UK than it is in the US, where you don't have to travel as far to get people together. But that's a beautiful idea, Melissa. I'll reshare your story later today. Dus Scoggins also got back in the chat and said he messaged you, Kevin. So check your DMs
Cool.
for a Dus
I will.
Scoggins or a Dus Coggins.
Well, and-
I don't know.
And with Melissa, like reach out to local CrossFit gyms. They're also country managers that work for CrossFit. That like one of their big things is getting community going within the CrossFit community in their country, in their region. And so like don't like it's listed on CrossFit.com. Like shoot your shot. Reach out to them, see if they're willing to like put together some kind of little CrossFit adaptive gathering or CrossFit gathering where adaptive and non-adaptive can come hang out and like they can try adaptive movements. Like that'd be really cool. And I think it'd be huge for the community. So like, yeah, reach. I've found in my many years within the CrossFit community, there's no shortage of people who want to get together and hang out as fellow CrossFit enthusiasts.
That's true. And in fact, Gordon, I believe, who's the Southeast Regional rep, was at the Adaptive Games this year. My coach was telling me that he finally signed up for the Adaptive Games, and so that was cool too.
Yeah, I've known Gordon since college, and
oh wow,
I've been trying to convince him for the past couple of years. I'm like, dude, like, you need to come to the adaptive side. You're one of us.
I was like, how's he one of us? And I looked at his legs and I was like, oh, he's one of us. It's just fun when you like look at somebody and you go, oh, hey. Although when you're at Home Depot and you see somebody and you say, hey, you should, never mind. And then they go, what? I don't have anything. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, like, you know, Gordon for as long as I have, I'm like, dude, I know your story, you know what's going on. Like, we'll have to, like for a lot of those things where I know people, I seclude myself from classification. So just so people also know that, like, I don't classify my friends. I don't classify people that I have relationships with. I pass those off to other people.
So we've also got the Para Coxswain joining in. What are your thoughts about neurodivergent categories potentially for sports? I think we cover that with our ID without CC division.
So that one's hard because technically, ID without CC does cover some individuals with autism and different neurodivergence. However, for the definition of that category, they do have to have something like an IQ under 70. I know IQ is not the only one we look through because we do have some other people who help me with the ID division, but it's not the only thing we take into account, but something along the lines of an ID below 70 to qualify for ID without CC. So just a diagnosis of autism doesn't qualify you. You know, and so like, yes, it's something we could potentially look towards in the future. Is it something that we could probably look into as far as like how does a diagnosis of autism affect power output? Because that's generally what we're looking at, is how does your impairment affect power output? Even when like, you know, you have individuals who are, you know, genius level intellect and have autism, it's very common. Like what is the effect on their ability to produce power at that level?
Yep. So we've also got a great chat going where actually someone just reached out to Melissa Stockwell again. So sorry if I'm getting your last name wrong. There's a Melissa Stockton and a Melissa Stockwell in our community, and I'm mixing them up right now. One's a Paralympian, one's in the UK. So sorry about that, the one in the UK. But there are people who are interested in actually joining her thing. They're chirping in the chat right now about wanting to be a part of that, which is super cool. So glad that community is coming together. We've also got Tim Murray watching with us, which is great. Tim, it was fun having you at the booth. And then we've got Aaron Honzik watching with us as well, which is super cool.
Guy's a beast.
So lots of community. Dude is a beast. Also, I learned how to spell his last name at the games. I was spelling it Hoznik, and he set me straight. My bad.
H-O-Z. How's it spelled?
Honzik. Or as he would say, Honzik. Zed. What is a Z? This is my show. I can call it a Z. Anyways,
we're talking in America where you use feet and inches. We're going to call it a Z.
We lift in pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move to a new topic, and that is the topic of retention. So I think there's been a lot of people throwing up a lot of charts about data and, you know, what the data shows. And in fact, when I entered this conversation a week after the games, it was because Sydney Peterson put up a post that I think was really well titled, which is they just stopped coming back. And I think she was onto something there that I wanted the data to fine. I was just looking at the data. I had the vibe, but I wanted to see it in the data. And it's true. We have a weird retention issue in this sport. Now, granted, our sport kind of came of age at a time when CrossFit was also kind of having retention issues of its own. So I think we can map that onto some of these experiences. But have you and the WheelWOD team done any look at some of the retention stuff that we're seeing?
This is something that I've been looking at and going over for like 2 or 3 years. It's not lost on me. I mean, I do see specifically when we talk about most of our female categories, I don't think it's as big of a problem when we look at our male categories. But in our female categories, it is quite a problem. Like, most of our divisions that weren't full this year were female outside of neuro. Now, we can also look at, the, impairment data where like loss of limb, paralysis, short stature, all that kind of stuff has a lower rate of females in general. Like if you just take a look at spinal cord injuries, females only make up somewhere between, I think it's like, depending on where you read it, anywhere between 20 to 30% of that population. So 70 to 80% are guys. So like that could also be part of it. But we do see people who have competed over the years fall off, but we mostly see it in the female categories. Like we had, I think, over 200 new athletes this year. Vast majority of them are male. I mean, the vast majority of them. And so like, this is something that I've been reaching out to female athletes that are still competing, reaching out to female athletes who have stopped competing, reaching out to, specialists in their categories, asking questions about like what we're doing. I've consulted with different, psychologist type things to see if there is a psychological side to this. And honestly, I haven't gotten anything that's been super actionable. I am more than, if there are female athletes out there that want to chat, like I'd love to chat. And I see like Sierra Landholm is like, is that true of able-bodied athletes? Yeah. And when you talk about the games and you look at like open season, there are more male athletes than female athletes. Oddly enough, there are more female athletes in CrossFit affiliates than there are male. So I don't know where that switches when we get into competition. But there are more females in CrossFit affiliates just doing CrossFit for funsies, but has always been more male than female when we look at like semis, quarters, stuff like that. And we see it in the teens, we see it in the masters. I don't have the exact numbers for like the indies and teams, but I know just talking to the legends in pit this year that is also kind of the case for them.
Gotcha. So as we would see downward trends in our sport writ large, they would be magnified on the female side of the ledger in some ways.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Like, so whereas like a men's field might drop from 20 to 15 and they're still fielding a field of 10 at the games, a women's field might drop from 10 to 7. And now all of a sudden when 2 people drop out and don't accept their invites to the games, you're now down to a field of 5.
Yep. And if you look at the numbers and categories, like we really didn't see that much of a drop in male categories this year, like maybe 1 or 2, and some in like other divisions are higher than they ever have been. But in the female categories, yeah. And if there's any, female athletes out there that want to talk and advise on the situation, I'm always willing to chat. Like I've tried to reach out to the ones that I have relationships with and know, and try to figure this out and see what we can't do to make this a better environment or opportunity for females. Cause I think the females that we have are absolutely like badass athletes that can do crazy stuff. And I want to highlight them. So, I'm always willing to hear feedback on what we can do better for the female population.
Yeah, definitely. And there's people talking on Instagram about age groups. I think that's a ways down the road until we get more participation figured out. If you want to start slicing this pie in other directions, my man. I mean, I know George Simmons Gooden could probably still hang, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being perfectly blunt, I would split the categories into more categories before I split the age groups. Yeah. Specifically because more categories means it's a more fair competition that can grow from our base. Whereas in age groups, we have some people who are aging out and that, they may not want to compete anymore. But at a certain point like that automatically adds 7 categories to the games. And how many people do we have to fill those 7 categories? I mean, if you look at masters right now, they still struggle to get anyone in 60 plus.
Right. That's so niche. It's just niche.
And masters are masters are by far the largest population within the open and semifinals and quarters. By far the largest population. It's not even close.
George Simmons Gooden needs to calm down right now in the chat. All caps. Age group starting with 50 plus. George, you've come in fourth the last 2 years to guys who are half your age. Like, you are still dominating this field. You came in first my first year. You whooped all of us, George. Anyways, if George had a group of 50 and up, he'd beat everybody. I mean,
listen, and I'll tell you this: if there are people out there who are like, "Hey, I would like to have an age group adaptive competition in my hometown and like add that to my local comp," I am, again, more than willing to hop on a phone call and discuss how some of the SOPs that we run to try to help you. But adding them into the category, like the games category, is just not in the cards at this point in time.
Yeah. I got to pause you right now. We got Mike Egan just joined the show on Instagram. Anyways, if you're still watching Mike, I mean, did you watch any of it, Kevin? Mike killed it at Last Soul. Like, I even put a question out to him, Mike. I'd love for you to reflect on this, but like, if you guys haven't watched Mike Egan at BPN, he got caught in the mud. His wheelchair got stuck in the mud, and he had to pull his wheelchair through the mud for probably at least 100 to 200 yards before he said, "I've got what I came here for." We talked about it at the games, but at Last Soul, he pulled in and finished a loop with 10 seconds left before he had to go back out on his last loop. And I mean, just that look of determination of like, I'm going to do this thing. It was the grittiest mental performance.
I mean, I may get in trouble for this, but yeah, in between doing lectures and teaching level 1, if I had a second to try to pop in and see how he was doing, I was popping in to see how he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well done, Mike. You continue to make our community so proud, dude. So proud when we get to watch you compete and see people going, "Have you guys heard of Mike Egan?" And getting to go, "Yes, we've heard of Mike Egan. Mike is one of us and he is amazing." So Mike, love it.
Much better human than I, but my biceps are still bigger. And I sent him a video saying as such.
What is the circumference of your biceps?
Well, left one's just over 20 inches and the right one's 20 inches.
I love that. Well done, sir. Okay. So, wow, I just got all distracted now. Someone pulled me back in here. Mike, really well done. Okay, this is where we're going to go next. So we were talking about retention. That's what we were talking about. So I think when we come to the retention talk, that is the one thing in this whole conversation that anybody listening to this can play a role in making a difference here. And I think any creative idea any of us have to encourage somebody to try adaptive CrossFit can make a difference. Meaning, if you know somebody that you're seeing on Instagram or that's following you on Instagram that has a disability, suggest that they just try adaptive CrossFit. Suggest that they go into a local affiliate, that they give it a shot. Because I think if we can grow this thing, especially around the open, and get people pushing into it, I think we can continue growing this thing.
Yeah, well, my 2 big points here are this. And this is something that I've talked to my team about really trying to focus on over the next year. Yes, the open is a pathway to the games, but I want people to understand that the open isn't only the games. It's not just a pathway. It's being in, like, the reason why we utilize the open workouts and adapt them is so you can go into your gym and be part of that community. So you're not the adaptive athletes sitting in a corner by themselves. You can be part of the community. You can be part of all this stuff. You know, we're right next to Craig Hospital. The number of people who have come out of the hospital a week later, done the open with me are probably in the hundreds. And it's not because I'm like, hey, you really need to go to the games. I want them to experience the community side of CrossFit. That's the whole damn thing about the open. Like, I still do the open every year. And if you're just doing the open to qualify for the games, I think you're really missing out on the greatest part. The second part of it is I know some of the retention stuff is like, you know, well, I don't think this is 100% fair. And I'm not going to argue with you about that. Like, until we have more categories, we're never probably going to make it perfectly fair, but we're going to make it as fair as we can. And if you're like, I'm not going to compete until it's 100% what I want, or I'm not going to compete because I'm not going to win. Mm-hmm. You know, I used to have to compete against Tom Miazga. You know,
we know who looked prettier on the floor.
Looked prettier and whooped my ass all up and down that floor. But the simple thing is like, we can't make it more fair until we have more participation. Mm-hmm. Until we show a need of, you know, seated one high division by themselves, an upper 1 point with limb and upper 1 point without limb, a fourth neuro category. Like, we can't do any of that until we show the need in these populations. And if we have, you know, if you look at the data and you look at everyone that registered for the open, I think it's like over 300,000. We are 1/30th of that number.
Okay.
1/300th actually. Like we
Yeah,
are a
1/300.
very
Yeah.
1/300th of that number. Like we are a very, very small percentage. And for me to be able to go back and be like, hey, we had 20 people in this category, let's split it.
Right.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Especially when CrossFit starts thinking about the ROI for prize money and for swag and all that kind of stuff. It gets hard. I do think there were a couple of things that did come up around open participation that I just want to touch on publicly. And that's Anna Stern commented on one of my videos saying that she had athletes sign up for the open and their scores were taken off the leaderboard. Was that a mistake? Was that because I think that's detrimental to people feeling like they participate.
Agree.
Okay.
100% agree. We're fixing it.
Okay, cool.
It's not something that didn't go unrecognized to me, but here's just so there's an explanation out there. It's not because we're like, hey, screw these guys who aren't going forward. It's not what we wanted. Yeah. But at a certain point, we have to yank people's scores down. And like we have so many videos to review and we have so many blah, blah, blah to review. But if we leave people's scores up there, even if they're not moving forward, right now, the way it's set up and the way the leaderboards have to be set up, if we leave their score up there, it affects everyone above and below them. So if we leave their score on,
even if they do it scaled.
I mean, we had people who made it to semifinals and scaled. So if they're down below scaled, it may not mess it up as much. But what happens if they do workout one scaled and they're in the scaled, and the next one they can do RX? They do RX, because we're not going to make you choose one or the other. We're going to let you do how you feel. And so let's say like someone gets 17th place. Mm-hmm. Well, if we don't pull their score, it messes up someone and I saw it this year. We had people who were in 22nd, 23rd place, just outside of qualifying for semifinals. But when we pulled the scores of people who aren't moving forward or don't have videos, they jumped up to like 18th to 19th.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I hope that we can find a solution for that because I can imagine how disheartening that is.
Yeah, and we are I've already taught
cool.
I've already talked to our team. I've already talked to people who know more than us. I've already opened communications with Comp Corner on how we do this. Lisa is on it. And if you know Lisa, when she's on something, it'll be fixed.
It'll be done.
And so we hear it, we see it. It's a solution that we've been working on. Again, there's a lot of this stuff. See, Lisa just said fixed. So there's a lot of this stuff that we've been trying to work on and figure out for a couple of years. And my apologies for not communicating these things better. I mean, it's busy for us to run this season, but I really appreciate Matt's opportunity to kind of get some of this stuff out there because your stuff isn't falling on deaf ears. I see it. I read all the emails. We don't have a big enough team for me not to read every single email and message we get. And if it's stuff that we can work on, we're working on it. If it's stuff that's just like, hey, we can't work on it yet, we're still working on, hey, when can we start working on this?
Yeah. And I will say, I got a good amount of empathy for you guys. Empathy for you guys. When I did the ask of the community for questions for this show and all that kind of stuff, it literally got to the point where I pointed Claude at my DMs on Instagram and I said, please tell me any of these that I haven't answered. And it just gave me a list and I was like, oh my gosh, this is too many. I can make sure I read all these, but I can't reply to every single one of these. And so I can imagine that is 10-fold, 100-fold of what you guys get.
I mean,
from all
just
kinds
for example,
of channels.
During the open, and we try to answer as quickly as we can. We try to get to them within like 48 hours. Sometimes we don't, and I apologize for that. But I mean, we were getting about 1,000 emails a week during the open. Mm-hmm. I mean, over one email per athlete that we had registered. And so it's when you have 3 people or 4 people that can answer these emails, 1,000 takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a question I would have then going into next year, I mean, this is going to dovetail into a couple of practical things, but is there a place for retired athletes to support? Is there an opportunity for athletes within the community to come help answer those emails, to be given a boilerplate script, to be given some sort of way to be able to triage your emails even so that they can get to different tiers of people who are needed?
On some of them, yes. Some of the emails, yeah. And we do have stuff templated and we do have a couple people who are in there just specifically to get to the emails that are easily, I wouldn't say easily answered, but are more like, hey, I have a question about this quick start guide. Okay, well, here's the answer. Hey, I have a question about the rule book. Well, here's the answer. It gets a little more daunting when you have people who are like, hey, this is what's going on with my impairment. This is new classification stuff. I have specific questions about movement modifications. Mm-hmm. So there's basically 3 of us that can answer those questions.
Okay. Lisa, your point here, if we can discuss, if you guys are interested, I guess I want to put out there, if you guys are interested, if WheelWOD is interested in...
She's yelling at me for saying too many things.
I know. I'm seeing it as well. So I think the thing is, though, I think there are athletes out here that aren't competing anymore that want to help, right? I know I'd put out many requests to help, and eventually I just said, heck, I've got gear. I know what I'm good at, and that's talking. And I like the sound of my voice, so I'm going to do that and see where it goes. And it works out pretty well. But I think there's athletes who probably have skills in, communication and in, administration that would love to help, that would love to be able to help you guys a little bit more. And I hear you, Lisa, on the protocols and the privacy. There's NDAs. I think there's things that people could sign that could maybe go somewhere. And I'm not speaking like an expert. I'm just speaking as a member of the community that wants to help grease some of these skids that we keep running into each year. Because when we talk about retention, if someone doesn't have a good open experience, they're out. They're just not going to come back next year, usually, right? It's just like, Kev, you and I are both involved in church world. If a guest doesn't have a first-time experience, the chance of them coming back to that organization again is rough. And I think if there's anything we can do to make sure that our athletes that are coming in have a good first experience, that can go a long way.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And if there's people who are retiring and I've already yelled at Tom and told him he doesn't have a choice. That we brought Mike in, we brought some of these people in to help. The hard part is right now is that they have to understand that it's on a volunteer basis. I know there's other athletes out there who are like, I would like to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I don't want to get.
We don't have those resources.
Yeah,
it's just. If you want to volunteer and we have places where you can help, we're always looking to bring people in to help with certain things. So feel free to reach out, and if there's a spot we think you can fit in, we'll bring you in. We've done it before. We'll do it again. So.
Yeah. Well, another thing that came up when we were talking about, when I was looking at some data, was that 25% of athletes who qualified for the games declined their invitation. And I think this year there was something specific there that wasn't related to you guys or vibes or the programming or anything like that. I think it was specifically related to cost.
Yeah,
I think anybody
there was a lot of them.
There was an article just this week about how San Jose is the most expensive city right now in the U.S., I think. And that's no joke. Thank God you guys made that partnership with San Jose State, because that saved my butt for being able to come out and actually afford to do what I wanted to do on the trip. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, speak to the cost thing for what you guys experienced this year, for what you're hoping for next year.
Listen, it's expensive. It's not just expensive for you guys; it's expensive for us to run these games. Kind of no matter where we go. I hear you guys, and I do want to find a location and dates and times. That's one of my big categories for finding venues for the following years is athlete affordability. We really wanted to be part of the 20-year anniversary shindig that CrossFit threw on. And I think the opening ceremonies kind of spoke for themselves about how special it was. I think that was the most inclusive and diverse group of athletes I've ever seen gathered in one location in my entire life. And I've been playing sports since I was 5. And I think that was really powerful and really cool. Mm-hmm. And to recognize our athletes where they should be recognized with the indies and teams. But moving forward, I would really like to find some place that is cost effective, not just for us, but also for the athletes, cheaper to fly into for our international friends, cheaper to stay, cheaper to eat, cheaper to be there for a few extra days. So we are taking that into consideration when we're trying to find a new location for next year.
Is there anything that you can share about kind of the format with divisional games, with everybody being together, anything like that?
There's nothing decided yet. We're still chatting and talking. I really enjoyed having all 3 divisions together. I think showing the masters, the teens, and the adaptive together is really powerful for affiliates and the affiliate owner community. Mm-hmm. I think it's really great, a great way to make it easier on people who want to watch all 3. We had a bunch of coaches who were coaches for masters and adaptive, or teens and adaptive, or teens and masters. And, with teens and masters, there's father-son duos, daughter-father duos that are in both teens and masters. And that's really cool to let them compete on the same stage and at the same time. So I would really love for that to continue in the future. I think it's really good for the sport. And so we're working on ways to work through and with and around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I will say, one thing that being in conversation with you and kind of just being able to think about this too from an event perspective, which is part of what I do for my day-to-day job, is it was really nice to come in there on Tuesday, the first day of Masters, kind of get the lay of the land. And then it stayed the same for 6 days. It just felt like I was at a longer conference in some ways, where once you got into your flow, yeah, some things changed when we switched from masters to adaptive/teens, but everybody by the time we got to adaptive/teens had their rhythm by like day 1 of adaptive and teens. And that was super cool. You weren't feeling like going into adaptive and teens, you were starting all over again.
Well, and selfishly, if I'm being honest, I would like to have them stay together, because the more we stay together, the more we can pool resources. The more we can pool resources, the more we can give back to athletes. And like, the easier it is for us as event organizers to be like, hey, we have 700 badass athletes. Sponsor, come here. Vendor, come here. Let's get these things into the athletes' hands. Let's show these athletes some love. And so selfishly, as an event organizer, I would really like to kind of have those pooled resources stick together, and the ROI triples, if not more than triples, when we have all 3 of these divisions together.
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely enjoyed having a quote unquote divisional games. While I missed having a shirt that said adaptive on it, it's okay. I thought the divisional part of it made a big difference for the experience. Yeah, but it wasn't in the design I wanted. The one I wanted said divisional on it. I was being a little bitch. So I'll take that. Okay, well, let's jump to something from the games, actually. Did you have a highlight from the games? Any moment from there that you just kind of, one of those moments that just kind of stops you in your tracks, where you're just like, wow, this is really special?
Man. Yeah, I mean, I had a few. Since she's already on here, being able to surprise Lisa, which is something I've never been able to pull off before in my entire life, was great. Being able to work closely with Brock, he's a great guy. That was great. From the athlete side of things, man, our athletes are awesome, man. They really are. They have super kind hearts. Like, I'll leave names out of it, but there was a division where it was this girl's first time coming to the games. It was her first event. It was her first year doing the open, and she made it to the games, and she missed her first heat. And unfortunately, per our rule books, like her scores can't count. But being able to go to the rest of the girls in her division and be like, hey, like, I know our scores aren't going to count. Like, we have to follow the rule book, but do you guys mind if she gets the experience and stays on the floor with you guys and just gets to be around you guys and gets to experience how awesome you guys are? And it wasn't even a question. Every single one of them was like, hell yeah. I mean, half of them were like, yeah, I want to see if she beats me, put her scores in. But all of them were so warm and welcoming. And like, after I had a 2-second talk with them and they were cool with it, all of them went straight over to this girl to kind of comfort her and talk to her and be around her and kind of help with the situation. And man, like, what more do you want from your athletes than that kind of community?
Yeah, that's right. And when we all get together on the floor too, like getting to actually see each other, because so much of our competition is video based and it's just a part that, getting to actually be in a lane next to someone, to have that experience for her must have been just so impactful.
That's why I wanted her to see how awesome it is, and like being able to take the floor with the crowd cheering, putting your heart on the floor with the people next to you that you just met in person but probably been talking to online. I just want her to have a great experience at the games, because I want her to come back. Like, she's a badass athlete. She's going to wreck shop in the coming years. And I wanted her to know that we're not just some heartless people who are like, no, you didn't do the right thing, we're going to kick you out. It's like, no, like, we want to make as long as we're following the rules, we're going to do what we can to make this a great experience for you.
Yeah. So what are some dates that athletes can be looking forward to for more information? I think you said classification. We're going to try and open that towards
as soon as possible.
The October timeframe.
Yeah, October timeframe. I mean, open dates are already announced. We'll run alongside the open just like we always have. So there's your open dates. Okay. As far as like semifinals and game states, we don't have those solidified yet. We're still working through a lot of that stuff. I'd be remiss not to mention that like Lisa has helped us revamp our entire website. So now there's like athlete profiles and different ways you can utilize the website to try to increase your sponsorship, try to make like massage some of the costs for you, blah, blah, blah. And so we are truly working to try to make this something that athletes can not only afford to do, but also, maybe make a little bit of extra money doing. Yeah. Like, I want this to be a thing. I want this to help this community in the sense of, in the sense that like, not only does it grow as a sport, but let's talk about the real goal, which is getting people who are newly injured or born with impairments, getting them into CrossFit gyms. All of us know how much it's changed our lives, and the more we can get eyes on and visibility, like you have no clue how many teens and masters athletes came to me and were like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." This is like volunteers coming to me from like the like we had a couple of people who were volunteering at indies and teams and came over like, "Hey, we're volunteering with you guys. This is too cool not to be a part of."
That's awesome.
So like there's a lot of cool stuff, and we are a really cool population of individuals who have decided that good enough isn't good enough, and we work our asses off to be better. And I think showing that on this athletic stage does the real goal, which is getting people into gyms, into CrossFit gyms, which in the long term, I think has the capacity to change the world and how we're viewed as people with disabilities.
I 100% agree. It's done that in my life. Just getting to talk to people in my local community at the church I work at, doing stuff like that has been a huge difference for them to see that like it's possible. So Roman in the chat was asking when the Open is. The Open is February 18th, 25th, and March 4th. I just posted that in the chat for anybody who needs to see that for themselves, so that they can have that data as well. That is when the Open starts. And then we'll know more hopefully soon from CrossFit about, when the divisional games will be, or when whatever that's going to look like. We'll hopefully know that in the October timeframe would be great.
I mean, we always have to wait until until ink dries on a lot of this stuff. But I promise you guys, like the second we have the ink dried, the contract ready, and information we can give to you guys, we're going to put it out through our social medias, through emails, through the website. CrossFit's even on board and helping us promote a lot of this stuff more. Like they're behind us, and so when we know, you will.
Yeah. So we also got a great compliment here from someone who's going to make me work on my Greek, but that's Konstantina Aleze. Oh man, nope. Matt can't read the Greek New Testament anymore, but Konstantina, maybe Nina, is saying, thank you, Kevin, for your openness and willingness to have this conversation. And thank you, Matt, for hosting. You're welcome, Nina. You're welcome, Konstantina, whatever you go by in Greek. You're welcome. So Kevin, thank you for having this conversation. I did have one more question for you as we kind of get ready to wrap up. In this off season, a lot of people are going to be going to competitions, regional competitions, that kind of thing. You were telling me that WheelWOD's kind of working on some stuff to maybe be able to provide a little bit more guidance to some regional competitions.
I would love, and this is something we have been working on, is like building out like a licensure playbook, basically like, hey, here are some SOPs. Here's how we standardize this. Here's how we standardize these things. Here's some movement standards so that we can pass off to different events, and so they can run more in-person competitions. I'll be honest, I don't think it leads to in-person semifinals or quarterfinals this year. I think that's just too tight of a timeline to have this turnaround. But maybe in the next couple of years, we can push to have more of these in-person competitions, make it a little more fun for the. I think if I remember correctly, I think it was like 54 or 56% of our participants are non-Americans. And so being able to have some non-American competitions with our guidance would be awesome. It's something we've been working on and hopefully can roll out sometime in the future.
That's great, because Carl from Adapt Aeon reached out to me with a question that was about that. Just kind of like, man, where can we get some guidance to kind of, maybe get on the same page with everybody would be helpful. So that's cool to hear that you guys are working on that, because I think you guys could be a leader in that space for the adaptive side of this. Yeah,
we've been trying to standardize SOPs or standard operating procedures, rules, regulations, continually updating and working on our rule books. So it can be something that can be, here you go, run it like this, and we can maybe use it as a qualifier years down the road.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, as we get ready to kind of wrap up, then I think I just want to hear a little bit more about your CrossFit Level 1 that you did. So, how do you teach the squat lecture? What does that look like for you?
Dude, the squat lecture is easy. It's just talking.
Do you write on the whiteboard? Do they lower the whiteboard for you?
Most whiteboards are fixed, so I write as high as I can. I usually make a joke that if they can't see it, stand up.
Nice.
But the lectures is just kind of getting the knowledge that I have and using words to explain things. The things I did a lot of work on is how do you coach movements when you can't do the movement? How do you coach movements when you can't demo the movements? How can I get creative and try to demo things without how do you demo hey, push your hips back? Certain things if this is your head, this is your hips, I need you to push the hips back.
Oh, nice.
And just years and years, and anyone that's interested in doing a level 1 that has some kind of impairment, they're an adaptive athlete, I say go freaking do it. Do it. And I'll tell you what will happen. You'll sign up, and when you put your impairment in the notes that you're going to fill out, I'll probably get a phone call from the people running the level one, like, hey, how do we, and like, I've worked with so many of these people for so long on the level ones, specifically like in my region and in the States, that a lot of them, they know my playbook. They know how we adapt and modify things at the level one. Like these are the best trainers in the world. Half the time they don't even need me. They just need me to say, yeah, that's good. But like, it's a great experience. When I first got hurt and had to get back and wanted to get back to coaching, I'll have to find it somewhere. I have a notebook that's like 2 or 3 of them like this thick. That's just like, hey, what is the movement? What are the points of performance? What are the faults? All right, now how do I correct these faults without being able to like show them? How do I use different tactile cues, visual cues, verbal cues, without directly demoing the movements? And so, I had to get really good with using my words and my creative visual cues. But I guess it's good enough for them not to fire me off of staff.
I think I remember actually seeing that moment in the Ogar Strong documentary when they were following you going to get your L2 or L3 or some part along that process. And it stuck out to me because I had started coaching shortly after watching that documentary, but it stuck with me because I was like, oh, there are options available to me even when we're having an overhead squat or a squat snatch in a workout, that I can still describe it, what it will look like, or demo it even and just say, but you're going to do this. I can't do this, but it's going to look like this, or have another person demo. It just opened up so many things for me.
I mean, and honestly, like, please go to your level one, because I don't think I ever give them enough credit, but like Sheree Chan and Nicole Christensen were 2 red shirts. I mean, Nicole's still on red shirt staff, that like completely changed the way I look at coaching. They would not let me use the excuse of like, well, I can't squat. How am I going to teach this? They worked with me. They gave me drills and things I could do at home to get better at this stuff, and wouldn't let me not be a coach anymore. And so like, I actually just worked with Nicole this weekend. I should have told her when I was with her, but like, she was a huge influence. Like she was my level 2 instructor. And I remember specifically going to teach the sumo deadlift high pull. And I was like, how am I going to teach a sumo deadlift high pull? And started trying to teach it. And she pulled me aside and she gave me like this point, and like, maybe try this. And like, she sat there and worked with me on how to do this stuff without the use of my legs. I don't think I'd be where I am right now as a coach or helping with the adaptive stuff without like Nicole and Sheree really pushing me to do better.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up. Just that story of what we do, what we pour into each other does make a difference. Yes, huge. Things like classification, retention, dates matter. And they do matter, but we can also walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do both these things. We can build a community, we can encourage each other, we can inspire each other, and we can work on other things as well. So Kevin, thanks so much for being open to having this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you to the community for engaging with your questions. And thank you, Kevin. Do you have anything you want to leave the community with before we wrap?
No, just if you have these like comments, concerns, problems, like, don't reach out to us. Like we don't ignore them. We try to answer as fast as much as we can. I'm if you've watched the level 1 stuff, like the whole point of it is constructive feedback. You have to be able to take feedback. I love constructive feedback that we can actually make actionable. So like if you're wanting to have like a productive call and not just call me an asshat, which happens every once in a while. Like I'm always willing to like chat or look through things or rethink things. I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think I know everything in the world. So like feedback is really appreciated.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes if you don't get a response to an email, it's perfectly appropriate within 7 days to say, hey, did you see this email? Because you probably see a lot of emails.
Yeah. I mean, if give us a couple days and, give us at least a couple days. Like don't wait 6 hours of emails again, but give us a couple days to see if we can respond. And if not, just we're trying to get to it as fast as we can.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, Kevin. And I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye. All right, y'all. That was Kevin Ogar, the owner of WheelWOD. And he I really appreciated his openness, his willingness to talk about these questions that you all had, that you all were also willing to share with me. I say this often when I end these live shows. It's a privilege to get to be able to represent our community, to get to be a part of this, to use these skills that I do have that are really weird in my day job, but are really even weirder to apply to functional fitness and to adaptive functional fitness. So thank you all for being an amazing community. I've been putting out videos on my Instagram from the desk shows that we did at the games. Feel free to keep an eye out for those. Share them when yours comes across the page. I'm going to try and add thumbnails to those as I have time. But when you see me tag you in something, that's probably your desk show from the games. If you want to share that conversation that we had at the games. In the meantime, we're heading into the off season, so things are going to slow down a little bit. I'll still be putting out some weekly episodes for about the next 2 months. Then I'm going to just take a breather. I'm going to the Adaptive Climbers Fest in Kentucky, middle of October. That's probably when I'll do my last live show and podcast for the season, featuring some of the stuff going on there. Climbers are a weird bunch, man. I'm kind of scared to meet them. I don't know if I can hang, but we're going to find out real quick. So we'll do that on a live show and kind of find out if I can hang with climbers, para-climbers, no less. So we're going to do all that, and then we're going to take some time off for the winter, because that is my craziest time at work, especially December and Christmas time. Working at a church is crazy. So guys, that's what's coming up. In the meantime, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to the podcast, listen to the episodes. Most importantly, share it with a friend, because we can grow this community. Your stories are out there. If you've had a story on the desk show, on the podcast, just share it with somebody. It's appropriate to do. It's your story. People want to hear your story. Believe it or not, you're interesting, and people want to hear what you've gone through. So thanks so much for being a part of this community. I'm Matt Hotho, and I will catch you guys next time. Boop. Boop.